What is up, fellow geeks and gamers? Welcome back to Ctrl Over C. I'm Mike Isaacs. So for today, the Ctrl Over C podcast, this isn't our actual podcast. This is actually going to be our Monday video. And the purpose of this video is to honestly just come and show you guys a little snippet from last week's Ctrl Over C podcast that we didn't really show, or we didn't really talk about. Basically, what happened is that me and Salsa have known each other for a very long time. So with the Ctrl Over C podcast, this is just a way for us to kind of sit down, once a week minimum, have a conversation, chat about whatever, and then most of the time it's us talking about video games. So this last week, of course, we with everything, I'm horrible at going off on tangents, and so is Salsa. So we went off on a tangent talking about, I think it was because we were talking about with the possibility of the consoles of the future removing a disk drive and it being all digital and having to buy a disk drive separate, kind of like they do with a lot of modern laptops. And we were talking about how Apple is removing a Ethernet port from its devices. And this prompted a conversation about why Salsa specifically hates Apple, and he very much does. And I'm by no means an Apple fanboy. I don't only use Apple products or anything like that. I have an iPhone, yes, but it's more of just a preference. It's not that I think that they are the superior brand or anything like that. But nonetheless, Salsa kind of took it in that fashion, so here we are. And so yeah, that little snippet, it's about 40 minutes long, I think, maybe a little bit less. But I'm going to throw that out here for you guys just to listen to. It's just me and him arguing. I mean, I'm going to be real with you. It's just me and him literally arguing about why Apple is, why, not necessarily that I think Apple is better, but why I think Apple sells more. And he basically, Salsa has a tendency to get a little worked up with this conversation because he very much likes Android. So we had a little fun with that. Obviously, we're all good guys, don't worry. But basically, it's going to pick up essentially where the last video left off, or about where it left off. Basically, when the conversation turned into an argument. But yeah, so I'm going to put that out for you guys on Monday, which would be today, of course. So yeah, have fun. Enjoy it, and yeah, let us know what you think in the comment section below. Do you like it when we argue? Is this something that we should do more often, or just in general, what you guys think? So yeah, hope you guys are enjoying it. Hope you guys are enjoying the content. Let us know in the comments section below if what else you want to see. If there's anything else you want to specifically see, of course. But we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it right now. All right, so I lost my train of thought. So basically, where I was going with that is that laptops, the introduction of the laptop was supposed to be that, like, it's a computer, but it's mobile, right? Like, that was the entire. I don't want to say that's the entire purpose, but you look at why laptops were created. They were created because what they were wanting to do is they were wanting to create a computer that was mobile. They wanted to create a computer that didn't have limitations. And obviously, early laptops had the limitation of, well, they can't use Wi-Fi, or at that time, I obviously, I don't want to sound stupid, but I would venture to guess that early laptops probably didn't have, their Wi-Fi probably wasn't really an option. But you look at modern laptops, 99% of the people who use modern laptops are using modern laptops with Wi-Fi. So not to say that there's no reason for an Ethernet cord, but at this juncture, with how fast internet speeds are, and how fast our technology is, and how fast laptops are, there's little to no reason to have an Ethernet cord, obviously, unless you're running a desktop, in my opinion. Obviously, and because I know what you're going to say, but what if, it's the fact that they're removing it because there's no space. Okay, so maybe they could have added it into the product. But if 99% of your product populace is not going to use it, it is a useless function on the laptop. And if somebody truthfully needs a USB port, I will say it again. You can literally right here. I just pulled up my little phone here and I was looking here. You can literally get at newegg.com for $2.80 a USB to USB plug-in where you can plug your Ethernet cord into it.
Now, let me counter all that with this. The fact that a Wi-Fi adapter is never going to be as fast as an Ethernet cord. No matter how hard you try, Wi-Fi adapters have huge limitations. My PC can only use Wi-Fi at about 100 megabits per second on a good day. Whereas if I plug straight in with an Ethernet cable, the one I have gives me almost gigabit download speeds. Granted, it is heavily... It does matter whether or not the website I am downloading from supports the same upload. But that is irrelevant. Let's say I want to work from home, but I'd only have a laptop. Well, yeah, I may have Wi-Fi, but sometimes your Wi-Fi is going to be spotty. Sometimes it's not going to be the best for doing business. If you want a secure Ethernet connection, it's important that they keep it in, because look at other companies. Every other company still has it. Apple's one of the only ones who's removing it because Apple has this notion that they're going to create a trend. Historically speaking, they have sometimes.
Right.
But on the other hand, they've also done a lot of really dumb shit. Like, I remember when they first came up with, they're like, oh, look, we've added retina scanning. And it's like, cool. My Android from 2 years ago had that. So they're a little behind the times, Apple, but no.
But and here's what I'm going to say. I understand the direction that you're coming from here. And I know that we've gotten a little farther away from the original point, which is that Xbox is going to completely destroy the PlayStation. Yeah, in terms of sales, at least based on what we have right now.
Oh yeah, we fully agree on that.
Right.
So, there's no doubt.
Right. So, like you said, we both agree that the Xbox is going to probably demolish the PlayStation, just based on what we know right now. But kind of back to what we were, I guess, talking about as a segue, is I get what you're trying to say, that they're trying to set trends. But if you just look at general consumer statistics, I would say a very large portion of laptop users, specifically Mac users, or just general laptop users, are not going to be using Ethernet cables, just period. Obviously, again, that's why I made a differentiation between desktop and laptop. Because obviously with desktops it's different, because you're right, there are limitations to what your desktop can do with a Wi-Fi connection. And I agree with that. But if you look at the general populace, and you look at it from, at least how I'm looking at it, from a marketing perspective of, we need to sell laptops, but we want to save cost on our manufacturing. So we're going to make a laptop that A, is going to appeal to the widest demographic, while B, saving as much money as humanly possible. And in my opinion, by removing unnecessary features from the laptop is a way to do that. Obviously, I would imagine that putting a USB port into a laptop, parts and labor included, it's probably not a significant cost. However, let's say if it's just a 10-cent cost to put an Ethernet connection into a Mac laptop for parts and labor, you have to think, overall. So let's say, what was the last Mac laptop? Like,
I don't know, probably the MacBook 2 or some shit.
Let's see. We're going to Google here.
I do want to add, though, It's important to remember that you're talking about the MacBook user base, which on average you could often find an overlap between MacBook users and lobotomites.
So you say that, and don't get me wrong, I understand your dislike for it, but MacBooks are not that bad. I mean,
It's
they're
underrated software. The internals are outdated. If you go right now to the website and make your own MacBook, everything they're going to supercharge you for, it's going to rack up thousands of dollars, and you could build it for a tenth of the cost.
and you're probably right, but regardless of that, how is it Apple's fault, and how are you going to degrade Apple for being able to sell these laptops? Because they wouldn't do it if they didn't sell. I feel like that's what we're forgetting here, is that they wouldn't they
Well, that's it. You can sell a box of human shit to someone, but just because you can sell it to them does not mean I'm out of line when I criticize you for selling it to them.
but that's the thing, is that in a way it is, and in my opinion, it's contradictory to the world we live in a way. So real quick before we get too heavy into that, so it looks like the most recent one is a MacBook Pro from 2020. So how many MacBook Pros 2020 were sold?
All I know is I'm not some dumb college kid who wants to play writer and sit in a coffee house and tap away on an overpriced MacBook all day.
So again, and you can say that they're overpriced, and I'm not going to disagree with you. That's not what I'm currently,
MacBook Pro. Let's see how much they're going to charge me right off the.
it's like a $2,000 laptop.
The Ultimate Pro starting at $23.99.
I'm not saying that it is I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form that um, that it's overpriced. I am going to agree with you there. Overall, the cost of a MacBook is not necessarily worth what you're paying, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because it's the same thing with any other. It's like with Alienware. I would probably say that Alienware as a general is not a very good gaming laptop, right? You can't really get a good gaming laptop from Alienware.
Well, hold
Alienware.
on. You're bringing up gaming. That's not fair because Macs already suck when it comes to gaming.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just saying, just generally speaking, they're probably overpriced.
Oh
Just
yeah, no
generally
doubt.
speaking.
If you are going and buying a computer of any kind, your best, cheapest option, to get you more bang for your buck, is make it yourself. There's YouTube videos on how to do it. There's good websites where they teach you how to build a laptop, what parts to buy. But if you're going out there and just buying a name brand, Alienware, Mac, it's a dumb idea.
And again, I'm not disagreeing with that in any way, shape, or form. I'm not disagreeing that.
Well,
So
I would ask you, what makes a MacBook worth buying, in your opinion?
I mean, generally speaking, it has a lot of people have iPhones. It has a lot of compatibility with iPhones. Generally speaking, MacBooks don't have horrible software. I mean, there's not any significant issue with the operating system. Obviously, I would agree that creating your own operating system that is completely separate from every other known operating system and has very little compatibility with anything else is not necessarily a smart move, because unless you're communicating MacBook to MacBook, that can have issues. But generally speaking, MacBooks are not horrible. You
Well,
know what I mean?
can I make a point?
I mean, yeah.
You're saying, essentially what you're trying to say is you think the big selling point is the operating system. The operating system allows more functionality with Apple products. Therefore, it is worth it to spend more on it for this operating system. Would you agree with that statement?
Not necessarily. I'm just saying that to some people, a Mac is better because just generally speaking, the operating software is not horrible. The overall look of a laptop, because it does have an aesthetic look. I know that you're going to pay more because it has the Apple sticker put on it, but
I mean,
generally,
that is the selling point for all Apple products, really.
but just generally speaking, it's not bad hardware. A Mac laptop is not a bad laptop. yes, it doesn't have the functionality of gaming. All that, you can't really use a Mac laptop for gaming. Period. But that's not to say that it's a bad system. You know what I mean? And I know what you're gonna say. I know that you don't like Apple. I know you have a hatred for Apple, but you are somewhat biased because that you have this inherent hatred for Apple. You've never really owned Apple products. You have maybe, I think you may have had like iPods,
Yeah,
but
I've
you've
had iPod Touch, iPod Classic.
but what I'm saying is that you've not used every single Apple product, and I'm not saying that I have either, but I have sampled more than just their iPods. I've sampled their phones, I've sampled their laptops, their desktops. So and what I'm getting to here is that yes, is Apple overselling the hell out of a laptop that you could probably make on your own for free? Yes. What you're paying for is that it was made by Apple, it was branded by Apple, and just generally speaking, you're paying Apple an exorbitant amount of money for an Apple product, which is not an unusual thing because, as we have seen, that's just how Apple works, right? So when you ask me, I understand your feelings on it, but Apple it's just a Mac, it's just a laptop. Is it the best laptop in the world? No. You can probably build a laptop, the best laptop in the world, for a lot less. But irregardless, there's still a market for it, or they wouldn't sell it. That's what I'm kind of getting at, is that if there was not a market for Mac laptops, then Apple would not be selling them. Period.
Well, all I'm going to say to kind of finish off this little topic is when you get the chance, look up a YouTube channel by the name of Some Ordinary Gamer. His name is Mudahar, and he makes an excellent case for why it's not worth it to get one. One, for the reason that you could build the same rig for a fraction of the price, but the entire argument that it's worth it for the software, you can get that on a Windows PC.
But some people prefer the Mac operating system. What I'm
Yes,
saying
you
is
can get
that
the Mac operating system on a Windows PC, is what I'm saying.
right, but that's just not the point. What you're basically what you're stuck on here is you want to try and prove that Apple and Mac are inferior and that they're the worst or whatever the case is. But I'm gonna have to say again that irregardless of any point that you or this guy makes, they wouldn't sell laptops if they didn't sell. I mean, I literally was looking at the statistics just now, and
Oh yeah, you can look at the statistics. The statistics do not reflect, though, the argument to be made that it is not a worthwhile computer to buy. The statistics just reflect that there are people who will buy it.
but that's the thing, is that there's a reason people are buying it, and if Mac is so horrible, then you would not see the level of growth and sales that you have seen. Go,
Well,
don't get me
that's
wrong,
not true.
it is true because you're putting a lot of faith in the concept that the reason people are buying this is simply because it has an Apple logo on
It's
it, in
brand
which
loyalty.
it is brand loyalty. But
Because
brand loyalty
everything,
only extends so far, because when I was in college, and I'm not trying to wave a college degree and say that my opinion's right. That's not what I'm doing. But
I
when
mean,
I
yeah,
was in
you're often wrong, so.
shut up. What I'm saying is that when I was in college, this was something we actually we literally studied, because part of advertising, part of marketing is basically it's it's seeing what's more compelling. Is it more compelling to have brand loyalty, or is it more compelling to have a quality project or program or whatever the case is? And it's part and part. In order to keep brand loyalty, you can't spew out bullshit. All right. For instance, people who love Nintendo, there's a reason why there are Nintendo products that don't sell well, and people can be brand loyal all day long, but if you give me some bullshit that is absolutely horrible, my brand loyalty doesn't mean anything. For
Well, hold
instance,
on.
Resident. Well, hear me out. You know how loyal I am to Resident Evil.
Yes.
I refuse to play Operation Raccoon City because I think it is a piece of trash. So I will not give I will not give Capcom my money for that game, even though I have purchased every other game in that series. Obviously, except for some of the things that I can't physically get. I have purchased and have played every other game in that series. And I have not and will never purchase Operation Raccoon City, no matter how loyal I am to that brand. So brand loyalty only goes so far, is what I'm saying.
And it does. Obviously, there are limitations to brand loyalty. However, it's important to remember, you would believe that when given the option to choose item A or item B, you would choose the one that is inherently stronger or better in any capacity.
Not necessarily. Because
That's
that's not the only thing that people look at.
Because if you look at the iPhone compared to its direct competitor, Android flagship, the Android flagship every time has been stronger, better. The only reason it's not outselling Apple is because brand loyalty and the Apple logo.
So, but that's the thing, is that generally speaking, yes, brand loyalty is what keeps people, coming back to Apple. And that's obviously that's part of it. But I'm not trying to say this in the way it's going to sound, because don't get me wrong, I have considered moving to Android, but iPhones are not horrible phones. Like, there's nothing that I can't.
By no means are they horrible phones. It's your average smartphone. It does what it needs to do, and it does it in a unique way that separates itself from other brands.
So let me
strictly internals.
But that's the thing, is that if you were to ask 100 people if the internals, if the hardware of your phone, how much that really matters to them. That's what I'm saying.
Why they chose Apple instead of Android.
But that's the thing, is that it's because I know what you're going to say. The reason I just like Apple better, or I've used Apple my entire life, is a good reason to continue to use that product. If tomorrow somebody said, hey, there's this new peanut butter, all right, it's literally the best peanut butter on earth. Literally, this peanut butter, it literally cures. This is obviously an exaggeration. I was going to say it literally cures cancer. But this peanut butter is the best peanut butter on earth. This peanut butter, what makes the peanut butter is that the peanut butter is made from X, Y, or Z, and it's better for you, or whatever the case may be. And they give me the peanut butter. I might like the peanut butter. I might think that this is some really damn good peanut butter, but I choose to continue to use Jif because, in my opinion, Jif is more than comparable, and Jif is a household brand that I've used for years. So why would I switch to something else when
and again, that goes back to what I said. You can be presented with not even an arguably, a definitively better product in terms of schematic, design, interiors, but you're still going to choose what you're familiar with, which is loyalty to your brand.
But it's not. But that's the thing, though, is that it also you have to look at how much does how much do those specs, how much does the software and hardware specs truly matter to somebody? And I'm sorry to say it, but it's not just brand loyalty. It just simply doesn't matter to most people.
But that's the thing. If it wasn't brand loyalty, it would be an even 50-50 divide. Half of the people would choose Android because it's a phone, and then the other half would choose iPhone because, like you said, it may not be that much better and people may not care about it, but so many more people choose Apple, and you can't say it's just because. There is a definitive reason for that, which is
brand loyalty. But it's not just brand loyalty. You have to think
just brand loyalty, but there's not much else that makes it a preferable device.
Well, here's the deal. Apple, generally speaking, has a larger range in terms of advertisement. Apple has a larger base in which it operates in regards to distribution. Generally speaking, you can go places and you can find iPhones easier than you can find Androids. And there are specific circumstances in which, because Apple, as a manufacturer, and this is truth. This is truth. And I'm not saying this because I think Apple's the greatest product on earth. I know that it's not. I know that Apple has so many shortcomings that I could fill a book with it, and in fact, people have. you know, but here's what I'm saying is that Apple is not just brand loyalty, because if you go to somebody and say, go buy a phone with this money, you can go to, for instance, Apple is notorious for offering, markdowns on phones if you purchase it through one of their authorized distributors. You can go to AT&T right now. You're correct, but Apple does it more, is what I'm saying. Apple's marketing is stronger. Apple's everything is stronger. So even if you were to show somebody the two phones, you were to show them all the specs, all the features, everything else. If I see Apple on TV more often than I do Android, I'm probably going to go with Apple. If I'm seeing all these products that Apple's making, they have the iPads, they have the iPhones, they have the Macs, they have Apple TV. There's a lot that draws somebody to Apple. Not to, I mean, again, I'm not trying to say that Apple is the end all be all, but I'm also saying that it's not like Android is some sparkling example of what is better than iPhone, is what I'm saying. Is that while I understand that brand loyalty is important, if iPhones were really as terrible as people, unfortunately, as Android users claim that they would not sell. I'm sorry.
Because
No,
every complaints people have about iPhones are valid complaints. The fact that you have to download first-party apps from their store, you cannot download third-party apps you can't download APK files, you can't connect the two Bluetooth speakers at the same time and play music.
But here's the deal.
You can't do that.
But okay, so here's the deal. Here, I just want to jump in. You can't connect to two Bluetooth speakers. I'm sorry, I've never encountered a situation in which I personally have to connect to two Bluetooth speakers. And I'm not saying that that's not a worthwhile feature. However, what I will say is that from a marketing perspective, does Android specifically market the fact that you can connect to two Bluetooth speakers? Are there advertisements that say, hey, if you get an Android, you can connect to two Bluetooth speakers? This is a specific thing that we have. And I'm probably going to answer that question.
It is a default feature that is expected of Android.
But let me ask you this.
Ability of doing, they just choose not to.
But let me ask you, if it's such a brand feature and it's so important, then why have I never heard of it except for what you've told me? And why is it so important that should be a defining point?
Oh no, I never said it was a defining feature. I simply said it's a default feature for Android that iPhones have the capability of doing, but it is not implemented because most likely in iOS, whatever the fuck, they're eventually going to release it and then claim it's a new feature.
And that's fine, but why is that such a bad thing? Maybe it's just something that not everybody wants or needs, and it's just going to come when it comes. I mean,
by implementing it, it costs nothing. It's super easy because they already have the capability to do it. They're just choosing not to because iPhone is notorious for recycling ideas that other companies have come out with first.
And that's fine. I mean, honestly, that's just how capitalism works. I mean, you can't fault a company for operating within the confines of our current system. That's how capitalism works. I'm sorry, that's just how it is.
Yes, but at the same time, it is not a capitalist idea to run a monopoly.
But that's not true technically. In capitalism, there's either a fair or a free market, and unfortunately, it's a mixture of both. In which there are monopolies. There are going to be monopolies. That's just an inherent ideology of capitalism.
In a purist capitalist society, yes, monopolies are inherent and allowed. In America, we have a mostly free market, but we do have laws preventing monopolistic tendencies because it is anti-consumer. We value consumers more than we value corporations.
Right, but to say
away with it.
But iPhones don't run a monopoly because, truthfully, a monopoly means that this is the only thing you can buy. Period.
No, think about it. Their App Store is a perfect example of one of their worst monopolistic tendencies. How do you get on their App Store? You have to be approved by them first. Good example. Xbox, I believe it was Xbox, put forth a service in which you could stream Xbox games to the iPhone. Got shut down on the App Store because they're trying to promote their own game streaming service over them. That's
But you could,
monopolistic.
but it's not, because I have on my phone the PlayStation Play, where I can play my PlayStation on my phone. So
No, we're not talking about the ability to play your PlayStation. We're talking about streaming brand new games to your phone.
But what's the difference?
Well, for one, you don't require an Xbox. It's like Nvidia, whatever their service
So
is.
basically, what you're saying is that Microsoft gave the concept that using the iPhone as the system.
No, not using the iPhone as the system. The iPhone is simply the
Playing
monitor.
it from. Okay.
The system you are playing off of is a cloud-based virtual system that can send, the best graphics to your phone.
Okay, so in PlayStation Remote Play is very similar. Obviously,
But
it's
it's
just
going through your PlayStation, yes?
correct.
That's
But
not
what? But it's similar. It still accomplishes the same thing. It obviously is not the same thing. But
Have you heard of this? I forget what it's called. I gotta Google it now. It's basically the service that all you have to buy to start playing brand new games is the controller, and it comes with a little USB you plug into your TV. It streams games from the cloud. Have you heard of that? Stadia?
Yeah, and that's fine. But why is it? But that's the thing, is that why is it wrong for a company to want to eliminate competitor overlap?
That's called a monopoly, Isaac.
It's not. A monopoly is when someone exclusively possesses or controls the supply and trade of a commodity or service. Apple is not doing that. Apple is merely limiting its competitors on its devices. Which I don't get me wrong, I would love for there to be other stuff on there, but
No,
that's just
a monopoly is when a seller faces no competition.
No, I'm looking here. Monopoly,
Definition:
the exclusive
a market structure characterized by a single seller selling a unique product in the market. In a monopoly market, the seller faces no competition, as he is the sole seller of goods with no close substitute.
But that Apple's not a monopoly, because there are competitors.
They literally said, Xbox, you are not allowed to have your app on our app store, even though it abides by the terms of service. Because instead of allowing that,
okay, but Apple is an entity that is allowed to deny people that they're allowed to deny that.
But they can't say it's not a monopolistic tendency.
It's not a monopolistic tendency, because Xbox will still survive in its specific area without Apple.
Look at Android. Android allows it because Android, they're not running a monopoly.
But that's the thing is that you're.
Because think about it. Every app that goes on the App Store for fucking Apple, they have to pay the Apple tax, which is whenever people buy their product, they have to give 30% to Apple. Even though Xbox would be willing to conform to that, they chose not to allow it. Do you know why?
Because the gain is not worth the potential loss.
No. What it is Apple has their own version of the service called the Apple Arcade, which they have been promoting for a little under a year now.
Exactly.
And if it had direct competition, they know they would not stand a chance. So,
but pause. But you're talking about a very specific niche inside of a niche inside of a niche.
That's not true. Cloud-based gaming is becoming more and more popular.
But it's still a niche. It is still a niche.
So much as playing with a PlayStation over Xbox.
Those are niches, yes. But what I'm saying is that you're talking about a subset of a subset of a subset. We're talking about just standard. Okay, you buy an iPhone, you get this. You buy an Android, you get this. So yes, you're correct. iPhone is very competitive. iPhone is very aggressive with potential competitors. So the iPhone has a subset So Apple has an iPhone. That is a subset of Apple. iPhone has a subset called gaming, mobile gaming. Mobile gaming has a subset, in this case, which we're talking about, which is cloud streaming, right? So that subset of cloud streaming is available only in certain perspectives. For instance, the Apple Arcade, right? Okay. So the Apple Arcade, in this case, its direct competitor would be this cloud service that Xbox was providing. So but it's not a monopolistic tendency because any competitor will do that. Xbox is not going to let PlayStation put directly a streaming service on its console. Is that monopolistic? No. It is simply competition. That is simply capitalism.
The problem there is you are comparing Xbox and PlayStation, which are direct competitors. Xbox and Apple are not direct competitors.
But
You can download the Xbox Smart Glass app on an iPhone right now. There is there's no reason they wouldn't allow it, just like the streaming app. The only difference is that the streaming app competes with one of their products.
So there is a competing product. That's what I was going to say. There is a product that is in direct competition of that.
It goes in direct violation of the FTC's competition mission to enforce the rules of the competitive marketplace. The antitrust laws very specifically say that they are in place to protect consumers from anti-competitive business practices.
But that's not true, because this is simply so the FTC will only step in if they are preventing that entity from entering a market. They're not preventing the entity from entering a market. That entity is already in the market. All Apple is doing is saying, look, we do not want this on our program because we live in a capitalistic society. You're a fan of free speech and of free trade. So the opposite of free speech and free trade, or the other side of that coin, is accepting that we live in a capitalistic market, and you have to, and I mean this, you have to be able to compete. So if you want your product to succeed, why would you specifically allow a product of the same nature to exist on your personal platform? Because
artificial scarcity. It's literally them making it so that they're their only option, which is.
But that's not illegal because they're not preventing that from entering the market. And you're correct. They are creating a demand. They're creating an artificial scarcity because they're only allowing specifically their version of that product.
It's anti-competitive, and the only reason it's allowed right now is because not enough people have taken direct law action against this giant-ass multi-trillion-dollar corporation. But
that's not the only reason. But that's not the only reason. You're missing the huge part of this, is that the App Store is not an open market. If it were an open market and it was produced as such, then yes, you're correct. They could take legal action.
If they want to get around the law, then what they need to do is do what Android did. Android allows you to download third-party apps not through their App Store. If iTunes allows that, which they're going to in the near future, because I very much agree they are going to lose their lawsuits with Epic.
And they very well may. But the point still stands, is that you can download third-party apps. They don't make it easy for you, granted, but you can download third-party apps. It's just that Apple, unfortunately, part of the issue is that it can be dangerous to download third-party apps. It can be. That's just an inherent risk that you take when you download non-approved, non-vetted programs, and that's going to be a risk you take. So you can download third-party programs. I have a third-party program downloaded on my iPhone right now. It took a little bit of work to get to it, but I can do it. But here's my next thing, is that is not such a defining characteristic of Apple that it would in any way, shape, or form create any type of competitive nature between it and Android. I think we're kind of skewing away from that. We got on a tangent. But basically what I was saying before is that there's nothing outstanding about Android that would mean that it is better than the iPhone. And you are correct that part of the reason why iPhone keeps a competitive advantage is because of brand loyalty. But there's nothing about an Android that makes me say, man, I would love to jump ship. because Android, there's nothing significant about Android that makes me want to jump ship.
But that
I
is
mean,
personal conjecture. It's because you personally do not see the benefit.
okay, so from a outside perspective, provide me one significant difference between iPhone and Android that you believe makes Android so much better than iPhone that somebody should switch.
I mean, right off the bat, the reason I went with Android over iPhone is because I saw Android in every case when you went flagship to flagship had the better internals, the better camera, the better security, and obviously the marketplace. Yeah, the Google marketplace is probably 10 times more lenient than the Apple marketplace. But the ability to download third-party marketplaces was a huge seller back then, because when I got an Android, iPhone didn't even allow third-party apps, let alone the handful of third-party marketplaces they allow now, which is still infinitely small because they don't want that much competition.
So I just want to pause you for a second. We've already determined that the internals of an Android are not so significantly better than an iPhone. Yes, there
That
are
is
some
your opinion. I saw they were better, and therefore that was enough reason for me to choose it.
but here's what I'm saying is that if you're speaking to somebody specifically who is looking at these numbers, and again, and this is a true fact. If you were to present, and this has been done, they presented a group of people who were unfamiliar with iPhone and Android. People chose iPhone on a blind test because they did not care about the numbers of the internals, because they're not significantly better to the point in which you're like, holy shit, why is that other one even a competitor? Because
Now,
there's
how well did they actually vet these people? How many of them had any working knowledge of the technology that goes into an iPhone and an Android?
they didn't. They had no working knowledge. They were
That's
just
the trick. If you have a working knowledge of the systems in play, then you're more likely to choose Android.
But that's
But
the
when
thing
you
is that
don't know,
but wait, that's not the common person. The common person can't sit here and have this conversation. We are the uncommon. We are the minority.
just because the technologically illiterate are the common does not make them right.
I'm not saying that it makes them right. But if you're looking at it from a pure market conjecture standpoint, you're
That's
going to have
You were trying to argue from the perspective of a technologically illiterate average everyday
I'm
man.
because that's how
Whereas
you have to
I
argue
am
it.
saying that de facto there is proof that the Android is better in terms of technology, software, hardware, the whole 9 yards.
But it's not significantly better to the point that the
But
average person, the average consumer, is going to say,
again, I never said the average consumer is going to choose the Android more because of it.
that's what I've been
I
talking
said
about.
from
We're
I said from the get-go, the Android is better in terms of software and hardware. It is de facto, and that's the reason I chose it.
but
You
but
you've
what I'm
tried
saying,
to argue against that.
the entire thing that I've been arguing is also, listen, I'm not at all arguing that Android has its positives and that Apple has its negatives. I'm speaking from this entire time. I've been speaking from the standpoint of a market. Okay, we're looking at this as a buyer and a seller market. Okay, the buyer, on average, does not have the knowledge that you and I have. Okay, we are significantly in the minority. All
And
right,
never once did I say the buyer is smart, let alone even knowledgeable about something as
but
basic as this.
but even the moderately literate are not going to discern small differences in internal hardware and software. That's what I'm saying. Is that an average person in the market, even an above average person who has even a moderate to low amount of knowledge and intelligence on this specific information, they're not going to discern whether, oh, this thing has X, Y, or Z software or hardware, and this one has X, Y, and Z internals. They're not going to discern those numbers because those numbers do not matter to them.
And that apparently shows the flaw in the argument. I never once argued that it's anyone other than me and you matter. You were trying to argue from a perception standpoint. I am arguing from a reality standpoint.
I know. No, realistically, I'm the one that's arguing from the realistic standpoint.
No, you're
Salsa.
arguing from a perception that people do not perceive a difference, therefore they're going to buy it. I am arguing from
I'm
in
arguing.
reality, there is a definitive proof that this phone has better internals.
Then why does iPhone? But then why does iPhones outsell Android?
It doesn't matter about outselling. You cannot
That's
say
what
it
we're talking
outsells,
about.
therefore it has no. I said from the get-go, this is about it has better software and hardware. Therefore,
that was
in my opinion.
But
I
that's
never once said it sells better because it has better internals.
I asked you. I said, if you were going to tell somebody why they should switch to Android, why are some reasons why they would switch? I'm asking as a seller, as a buyer.
I gave you my reasons why I personally switched. But before that, I said from the beginning that if you look at purely statistics, it is the better phone in everything but sales. I never once said it sells better.
But that's what the conversation is, because we're talking about.
No, that's what your conversation is. My whole conversation from the beginning has been it is a better phone when you look at the numbers. When you look at the sales numbers, you can say that the iPhone sells better, but you cannot make the argument that it is the better phone.
This entire conversation has been about the two markets, iPhone and Android. Okay, we were talking about brand loyalty and why people will buy things with the iPhone logo. That's the entire reason that I've been talking about this. I was asking you that why should somebody buy an iPhone over an Android, and you gave me the internals. And I'm merely stating that the internals alone are not reason enough for somebody to buy an Android over an iPhone, because the average consumer does not know what we know about technology. So it's
as simple as, if you run a baseball team, who are you going to draft first? Are you going to pick the man who hits 100 out of 100 home runs? Or are you going to pick the man who hits 99 out of 100 home runs?
But it's not black and white like that, because the 99 out of 100, it's not. But listen, hear me out. Hear me out.
It's a simple numbers game.
It's not a simple numbers game. Listen, let's play baseball here. All right. Let's say you have a batter who is he's let's say, like you said, he has a 1,000%. I can't remember what I don't remember, but there's a word for it. They have an average of 1,000% because they always hit the ball, they always get on base. But this guy just came up from AAA, and before you say anything, he just came up from AAA ball. He's not well known. But you have this other guy who is batting. He's batting like 600-700. All right, he's a good batter. He's been in the business for a little bit longer, but he has a name. People know him. People buy his jerseys. People buy his hats, because it's not a simple numbers game. Just because one person bats significantly better than another person doesn't mean that the better batter is going to get picked. Because the person who has
Isaac, listen.
You're talking from a pure internal standpoint.
You are now talking about from the perspective of a knowledgeable.
No, I'm not.
Coach, because if you take your average person who knows very little about baseball, they're going to choose the person who bats better 10 times out of 10.
But batting is not everything. What if the good batter has 0% runs batted in?
That's why I never included any other details. I'm talking purely statistically.
Okay,
you have one that is better and one that is worse.
But that's not truth, because you're talking about base internals with nothing else. Yes,
I'm talking about the phone you buy when you buy it. Okay. We're not talking about market research. We're not talking about your average.
But hear me out. But there's more. There's more to a phone than internals. Okay, there is so much more to a phone than internals. But here's what I'll say. If somebody is going to purely buy a phone based off of the hardware of the phone, nothing else. How much memory? How much this? How much that? What kind of camera is this? Yes, Android is marginally better, but there is not a single consumer in this market who will buy a phone purely based on that one facet of the phone. There is nobody who would. And if you are buying it only on that facet, then you are not a smart consumer. Because
I disagree. If I
No.
pick a product that has a 100% success rate over a product that has a 99% success rate, then I'm being a good consumer.
But success rate isn't that. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that this product has, again, we're not saying significantly better. We're saying marginally better. We're saying that there are slight to moderate differences in some of the specs.
Even a 1% difference, while it may seem marginal,
but
is
that's
de facto proof one is better than the other.
That's de facto proof that the internals are better, not that the phone itself is better, because there are more features to a phone than just the hardware.
And again, I ask you, to back up that claim, name one thing about iPhone aside from perception that beats out Android.
But perception is honestly 99% of the game. It is.
Yes, you can sell a lie if you're charismatic enough, but perception is simply a game. You can make anything sell if you're smart enough. Cards Against Humanity sold a box of literal feces because they could. They had the perception of a company that will sell you a product that is quality.
But what is inequality? What is so horrible about an iPhone?
Again, I never said there's anything horrible. Just that when you look at it, it is one step down from an Android based on internals, the logistic.
So again, it's not black and white. So here's what we'll do. Here's what we'll do.
If the camera is 14 megapixels and the iPhone is 13 megapixels, it's black and white. One is better than the other. Would you agree with that statement?
No, I would not agree with that statement.
Why would you not agree with that? That is a fact.
Because why would I make a decision based on that one thing?
Simple. There are people who buy phones with the sole intent of using them as a phone and as a camera. Those people may not be literate enough to know the difference between a Core i8 processor and a Core i6, but they will see, oh, this is a higher megapixel camera, therefore it will have better resolution when I'm taking pictures. They do not represent a huge market. However, there is a difference between 14 and 13 megapixels. It may not be a stark difference, but it is proof that one is a superior megapixel over the other.
But that's the thing. But that's the thing. Even though that's what you're completely missing, is that no one buys it purely off of an internal. So yes, if you were to put two devices in front of me with no other statistics, with no other information at all, I can't even say that I would, because I wouldn't buy something based off of that one piece of information, because that's not smart buying.
And if I put a regular calculator and a TI-96 in front of you, and you do not know how to use a TI-96, you're more likely to choose the regular calculator because it's simple. You look at it and you say, I understand everything about this. Everything else on this other thing, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to use it. Therefore,
but that's not a smart comparison. That's like saying, okay, here's a TI-86 and a TI-85. The TI-85 has maybe one or two things different, but I'm familiar with the TI-85
subject. That
is the point, is that nobody is going to sit here and buy something based off of only one set of information.
And again, you're talking about a nameless group of people. I am not. I am talking about me and you. When I bought my phone,
I would not do
internals, and I said, this is what I want to buy, and this is why I would recommend it, because internally speaking, it is superior.
Okay, but this entire time, I've not been talking about that.
Yes, this entire time you've been talking about perception, marketing.
I have not. But no, I've been talking about consumers. Consumers is not just perception.
That's marketing. It's literally how people perceive the product and why they buy it more.
Consumption
because you cannot name a reason they would buy it more other than it has a better marketing strategy.
Yes, because that is 99% of selling a product is how you market it, how you advertise it.
And you even admitted you would not pick a inherently better peanut butter if you had a preference in the first place.
Correct. I was simply giving an example of brand loyalty. However, I'm continuing down that path saying that no one should buy something based off of one piece of information.
But that's the problem. You were
it-
trying to say that the logistics and the internals of a computer are not a selling point.
They're not.
But they are. Computers themselves are sold by those internals. Would you buy an RTX 3080 or would you buy an RTX 1080 Ti?
But it doesn't matter because
But
no
it
one.
does.
It doesn't, because a standard consumer is not going to know the difference. All right, if you're going to
And
give it to
that's
them
the
blind.
thing. You were talking about the standard consumer. I am not. I am asking you as a person, would you buy the 1080 Ti or the 3080?
I am the standard consumer because I don't know the difference.
Exactly. You don't realize that when you buy one, it's going to perform worse in the long run.
But that's the thing, is that if you're looking at it from a standard, but that's why I'm saying you look at it from a standard consumer, because our listeners are not going to be 100% knowledgeable on the ins and outs of why iPhone or Android is better than the other.
Yeah, and I could trick your average dumb consumer into thinking the Nintendo Switch is better than the Xbox One X. I could do that, no problem. I just got to say, look, it's pretty, it's handheld, and it can play Mario. Internally speaking, it is a vastly inferior console. It will never be able to run products in the same way as an Xbox One X, but people are still going to buy it
because there are features to it that are preferable than a console, and that's just fact. I mean,
it is a console.
But what I'm saying is, like, from an Xbox or a PlayStation, there are superior facets of a Nintendo Switch. One of which being its mobility. I can play games on my Nintendo Switch that are AAA titles that I would not be able to play in a similar fashion on the other entities. Except
and
for
the other side of the coin, there are games you will never be able to play on the Nintendo Switch that are available on every other console.
But if somebody is, let's put it in the perspective of an average consumer, okay?
Again, they're going to buy based on what they want to play.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is that
they're
not
say, I want to play Mario, I want to play Zelda, because those are the games I like.
But why would a person who wants to play Mario choose an Xbox over a Switch? They're not going to.
But that's the trick. I'm not talking about someone who's going to. That again is brand loyalty. They want to play Nintendo games, and those can only be played on that console. If you will never find someone who will say, I only want to play Skyrim, so I'm going to buy a Switch. No,
but
Skyrim
that's
runs like dog shit.
But somebody who loves Skyrim, but who also loves Nintendo, will say, I'm willing to make the sacrifice of a reduced operating system to play Skyrim because I can also play these other games. Because that's a factor you're not taking into consideration.
And we've already overcome that, though. The Xbox cloud-based system that you can download on the Android allows you to stream it directly to your phone.
But they cannot play Nintendo games.
That's the only selling point.
But that's not the only selling point. Is mobile. That's another selling point.
Xbox now has a mobile device called your phone.
But that's the thing. It's not all phones.
Exactly. The only phone that doesn't offer it is the iPhone because they don't want the competition.
Okay, and that's the thing, is that your average consumer, on average, there are more people who use iPhones than they do Androids. So if we're going to use your example here, okay, I have an iPhone, so the Xbox streaming service doesn't fucking matter. Okay, I should get a fucking Switch because I can play Skyrim and Mario.
But then you have to actually go through and count the overlap of who owns iPhones and who owns Androids, overlap it with the data of who owns Nintendo Switches and who owns Xboxes or PlayStations.
Right,
You're going to find that on average,
we're entering. But listen, we're entering a market that honestly doesn't matter. That was just a stupid joke. That number doesn't actually matter. I don't really care. What I'm saying
no
is
one cared about the Switch.
That's not what I'm saying. I like the Switch. I think the Switch is a perfectly fine product. It has its
a
drawbacks.
functional product. I like it because 1, Breath of the Wild, 2, Smash. Other than that, it's weak.
But regardless, it has a market. Everything has a market, and it has a market for a reason. So we're going to leave it there because I have to go to eat dinner because I just got off work. But next time we'll continue our conversation on this. Maybe we'll see, because this got down a weird rabbit hole, and this is essentially arguing at this point. So, of course, we're going to end it there for now. On the next podcast, we'll talk about a different couple things. But regardless of what we're going to talk about next time, check us out on social media at Geek-Stew. You can search us on Facebook, or you can go to facebook.com/trythestew, or you can go to Twitter at trythestew. In addition to that, check out Salsa on Twitter at Red the Writer, or it's Red_the_writer, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And then mine is at Pint Size Beast. And then, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, and everything else. This is a little bit of a longer one, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. But yeah, I'm out of here for right now. Anything you want to say, Salsa?
All I can say is the only reason I would ever buy an iPhone is to tickle my taint.
I mean, if it offers that better solution, then I guess it's better than Android. Anyways.
Shit, Android probably has a better vibrator function.
I don't know. Anyways, everybody have fun out there. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and keep on growing.
Later, nerds.